You are listening to Offensive Lines with Marlon and Boyd. Small stakes NFL gambling for the average fan.
Welcome to Offensive Lines. I'm Marlon.
I'm Boyd.
And this is the Week 10 Pick Show. We,
11.
Oh, yeah, 11.
11.
Yeah. God.
You've been so good for so long.
I know. I've been writing it down. I was thinking Week 10 recap, which we posted yesterday. And we went a little long, but we went 1 of 3 again, which is really unacceptable. As I explained yesterday, Boyd, your votes are 1.5 of mine. You've just been killing me lately.
Not.
If it's a tiebreaker, it's going over to you. But that said, do you think it's that time?
It is.
We know what time it is.
It's motherfucking game time!
That's right. It's motherfucking game time. All right. Your team is playing on the Thursday night.
All right.
Tennessee.
I can stay up late Saturday and play Fallout.
Yeah, no kidding. Seriously, give dog meat a teddy bear. He plays with it. It's hilarious. Anyway, but Tennessee are 3-point underdogs at Jacksonville. There are so many reasons I'm glad we can't bet this game.
Well, one's the uniforms. 2, well, I'll just get this out of the way. I'm taking Jacksonville. Tennessee has no wideouts. Wright's going to be out again, I believe. They haven't said that yet, but reports coming out of Tennessee today was Malarkey wasn't happy with where he was at with his knee injury, so he's not going to play. Justin Hunter, even though they haven't really used him, fractured ankle on Sunday. Brought 2 guys off the practice squad, and we have the second lowest receiving yards from wide receivers in the NFL besides, I'm guessing, Kansas City.
Yeah, that would be a good guess.
Our defense has played well. They might keep us close. Delaney Walker would be a good start in fantasy this week. But Jacksonville has no pass rush. We don't have much of a passing game right now. Oh, Jesus. But
their secondary is terrible. But as you just pointed out, you have no wide receivers.
We'll have Fasano, Stevens, and Walker as our receiving threats. Maybe McCluster.
Not Dorial Green
backfield.
Beckham? Is he going to play?
Oh, yeah, he's in. But the week before, he caught 70-some yards receiving. Last week, he had 23. I can't see them focusing on him. So I don't know if he can't get open or whatnot, but I'm just taking Jacksonville. Short week, take the home team. It seems to work.
I'm with you. When the teams are close like this, I will take the home on Thursday.
Yeah, you didn't last week. You got it right.
Yeah. As I said, that was a rare case where I'm taking the road team. I don't like the Jets much.
Well, no, if Jacksonville wins this game, they're right there for the AFC South crown. They'd be tied with wins.
Wow. That's even with Houston's victory, or is Houston going to run away with it now?
Well, Houston is 4-6, 4-5, and they're tied with Indy. So Jacksonville would go to 4-6 with a win against the Titans. So I'm taking Jacksonville.
All right.
Bortles has looked okay. What the fuck? Titans stink.
You've usually, with 2 exceptions, when Mariota's in the lineup, you've played pretty well. So I'm still going Jacksonville. But again, your team's 2-7, but It's a much better 2-7 than last year, I think.
Yes.
All right, moving to the Sunday games. Dallas is +1 at Miami. I kind of like this game, Boyd.
I do too, but I kind of liked Philly last week too.
Dallas, with no quarterback, has been playing everybody tough. The defense is playing pretty well. The run game has been solid. They now have Romo and Dez back at the same time. Romo's been practicing for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So he should be as good as a week 1 guy. Plus, his injury wasn't one of those things that will hinder him. It just had to heal, right? The collarbone.
Yeah.
It shouldn't affect anything about who he is. I quite like this one, getting a point with Dallas.
Yeah, it's not. I had it in my mix, but I just Witten will be more involved with Romo back now. McFadden didn't have a great. It worries me that they didn't really run the ball well against Tampa, but maybe with more of a threat at quarterback this week, should open up some running lanes for McFadden.
Yeah.
And
he didn't run poorly at Tampa Bay. For what I saw,
like 32 yards.
Wow, they were stacking the box too,
receiving.
kind of as you said. But Beasley has shockingly been playing all right too. So
yeah, maybe we'll see something out of Terrence Williams again now that Romo's back.
I mean, they have weapons
dismal on offense.
Well, again, there's a couple of good reasons for it. Whedon, formerly of the Cowboys, and what's his name?
Matt Castle.
Yeah, Matt Castle. They were truly terrible.
We'll keep this in the mix.
Okay.
I don't hate it.
No. And I like it quite a bit, but I've sucked lately. Anyway, next up we have Denver +1 at Chicago.
I don't mind this one either.
This is maybe the
Chicago
reverse.
side.
I don't hate it, but I still think Denver's defense is pretty good.
Yeah, but how are they scoring? Like, Chicago did well against the run against the Rams. We thought Gurley'd give them trouble. They picked the Rams' defense apart for most of the game on the road. Played Minnesota tough. They're not as bad as people thought they were going to be.
Myself
Bears?
included, yeah.
I don't know what Osweiler is going to do for the Broncos. They have no running game. How is it going to improve with Osweiler quarterbacking?
Well,
if you can't get running game going with Peyton Manning under center, how is it going to be effective against with Osweiler in?
At least Osweiler has a live arm, and he's the wild card. That's probably my biggest misgiving about taking Chicago here, is we just don't know what Osweiler is at all. I still don't hate it. Like, I'm kind of like you are on Dallas. It's not the worst game on the board.
But how many passes has he thrown in his career? Like 60? Something like that? It's a little strange that it's only 1 point, and that's based on Denver's defense. Like, so what are they saying? If Manning was playing, they'd be favored?
Probably.
He had 9 touchdowns and 18 interceptions or something. It's just that. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, there is a bunch of wild card factors here. They get Talib back.
Did Harris
Langford
get
looked as good as
suspended?
Forte in the offense.
Yeah, though Forte might come back. And to tell you the truth, the way Langford played, if I'm Chicago, I'm not even looking at signing Forte to an extension now.
No.
He looked like the same
And
guy. I mean,
said
Forte
he
was
wasn't
a...
coming back.
Oh, did he? Okay.
He said he wasn't coming back till he was 100%.
Okay.
And I think that has as much to do with his contract coming up as anything. Like, no use risking your career when you're at a free agent point for these games, because the Bears aren't going to make the playoffs unless Minnesota and Green Bay shit the bed the rest of the season. So, but I don't mind this game. I kind of like Chicago here. I'm going to take them. But
I'm going to take them as well.
We'll see where we're at.
And I'm putting it in the mix, though, for the reasons I discussed. I'm a tiny bit hesitant, but I kind of like it too. All right. Next up, we have Indy. +6 at Atlanta.
I don't want to touch this game with your money.
No, I don't. For some reason, I ticked Indy's, probably because I'm so pissed off at Atlanta recently, but I looked at this and I'm going, why the hell did I put a mark beside this? I want nothing to do with it.
No.
That said, I'm going to take Indy.
Oh, I can't take Indy. I don't want to bet it. I said I wouldn't bet on another Falcons game this year after that Niners crap, and I'm sticking to that. I might bet against them. I'm not betting for them.
Fair enough.
But I don't know how you take Indy in this game. I know Hasselback's 2-0 in his 2 starts that Luck was out earlier. But who did they beat? Jacksonville and oh shit. They were both at home.
Yeah, it
and
was another
close
gang
games.
of scrubs. Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I'm taking Indy is I really don't think Atlanta should be favored by 6 over anyone. Period.
But Indy's defense is bad. I know
they've played
don't
better
really
the
have a
last
pass rush
couple of
either.
weeks.
Yeah, but I think Atlanta should be able to run on them. They're both coming off the bye week. So that may have some effect on it. I'd have to take Atlanta begrudgingly. Anybody from the AFC South, I don't know how you bet them, except we had to with Jacksonville. We had to make a pick there. I don't know how. Somebody had to be favored in that game, but Indy on the road, backup quarterback. I think Atlanta will get the running game going again. I don't know how they cover Julio Jones in Indy.
Yeah.
So
it's reasonable. 6 points seems steep to me, so I'm going to stick with Indy on that. Next up, the game is off the board. The New York Jets are at Houston. Should we fly to Houston and maybe see if we could quarterback either of these teams? I mean, isn't it... Who's the quarterback for Houston?
TJ Yates.
TJ Yates, and it might be Geno Smith again. Because Fitzpatrick, if he's trying to play through this pain, he was awful.
Yeah, but it's his left hand. And I know that's the one where the ball gets put into off the snap. That gets hit every snap, but come on. Just numb the thumb and get on with it. Houston's defense played well against Cincinnati. I just don't trust Houston. Is 10 points enough to win against the Jets?
Could be.
But the Jets' defense isn't horrible either.
No, the Jets' defense isn't terrible.
You put Revis on DeAndre Hopkins. They're not going to run the ball. How are they getting points? Like the amount of drops I saw on the highlights of that Cincy Houston game from Monday night, It was fucking brutal how many balls since he dropped.
Oh, Eifert.
Had 3 or 4.
Everyone's blaming it on... Oh, and they were crucial drops, too. Everyone's blaming it on Dalton, with some justification. He certainly looked like primetime Dalton. But he definitely was not aided by his receivers being unable to catch the goddamn ball.
Green dropped a couple. Eifert dropped 3 or 4. And, like, if those are third down conversions, you don't know what's going to happen on a drive if you get some momentum going. But you can't get momentum going when you're getting drops all the time. You don't get in any rhythm offensively. So I'm taking the Jets.
All right. You've convinced me, because I thought Houston... Well, we both thought Houston was awful enough that we laid 11.5 on, or 10.5 on the Bengals last week. Why does one mediocre game with a lot of luck on their side change our opinion? I'm with you on the Jets. All right, next up we have Oakland -1.5 at Detroit. This game I do like.
Yeah, me too. I don't think Detroit can expose the Raiders like Minnesota did, and it was more Minnesota's defense. The Raiders hung tough with them. They just couldn't do anything offensively in the second half.
And Detroit has nothing like Adrian Peterson.
No.
Calvin Johnson, I don't know what combination of factors, but he's been really a non-entity for most of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, like the Detroit scored 18 points in that game against Green Bay on Sunday, and 7 of them were set up by the fucking 104-yard kickoff return that put them at the half-yard line.
Yep.
So their offense put up a whopping 11 points.
Yeah.
So,
and
that's against a Green Bay defense that's not that great, and the Raiders can score points.
Yes. And
I know it's
I don't know what their full status is, but Detroit's secondary on that last Green Bay drive, there was a different guy going down on every play. So I don't even know who the bodies are going to be in the secondary, and I don't know that even if they were all healthy, they had anyone who can match with Cooper.
No. Or any of the other receivers.
Yeah,
Holmes
Crabtree's having a nice little quiet season.
Yeah, like he did that in San Francisco.
Yeah, except for last year. I have no idea what happened, but yeah, he was a good...
Kaepernick happened.
Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, his best season was with Kaepernick, too. That's when Kaepernick actually looked like he might become a passing quarterback. It was all to Crabtree. But, no, I like this one quite a bit. I think it's definitely in the mix. Plus,
yes.
I've got to imagine Detroit's going to have a bit of an emotional come down. I don't like to do that part of the game.
Well, they're just not that good.
No, they're not that good, and they beat the big bad bully for the first time in 20-odd years. So, no, I'm definitely on Oakland, and I don't mind this game a bit. Is Oakland 4.5 points better than Detroit? I agree. I think they are.
Well, yes, but the only thing that scares me is the travel again. West to east and playing the early game.
Yeah.
It's like 10 o'clock West Coast time for their bodies. And that's fucked up a lot of teams, but we'll see what else we got when we get done here.
I think the Minnesota game, too, was a bit of a reality check for Oakland. But I think that they'll actually respond from the way I've seen this team act. I think they will respond to a loss with not oh, crap, we're not that good. It's like, we shit the bed there. Let's come out and thrash some putty cats.
Yeah, that's 2 losses in a row for them, so they have to win this week or they're done, basically, for the playoffs, so it should be a little added motivation.
Okay, next up, we have the Rams +2 at Baltimore.
I don't want to touch this game.
No, I don't. I was hoping we could just follow Baltimore around and bet their opponents. But the Rams looked awful. They're making a quarterback change. But unless they change their whole game plan.
Yeah, who do you take in this game, though?
Well, Baltimore's biggest weakness is their secondary. And I'm not convinced the Rams have a forward passing game.
No, but Jacksonville got no pressure on Baltimore at all. And still won.
Yeah, and they have a terrible secondary as well. And somehow, without any receiving weapons, which is what we said at the start of the season, somehow, even with their terrible secondary, Flacco couldn't throw it.
I hate to say it, but I'm taking St. Louis. Fisher will play this game close. It'll be close just like the Jaguar game.
Yeah, Baltimore certainly doesn't have the weapons of Chicago.
No, they had no running game against Jacksonville. Passing game was so-so. Yep, I got to go St. Louis just on their defense. And they've been a week-on, week-off team.
That's a good point. Yeah, their pass rush, I mean, Flacco couldn't find a receiver with all the time in the world. Why would he be able to do it when he's got half that time? Yeah, I'm going to go the Rams. Yuck. All right. Next up, we have Tampa Bay +5.5 at Philly.
Not betting this one either.
Nope.
Tampa's defense has been better than I thought throughout the year for the most part. They've been feistier than either one of us thought. I think they're right on the number for our preseason bet, aren't they?
Yeah.
Or were they 4.5? Yeah, it was 4.5, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Over under, I think. So they win one more game. That bet's dead.
Which they will.
Yeah, they're going to win another game. They still get to play New Orleans again, I think. I actually like Tampa Bay here.
I kind of do too. Like
+5.5.
I mean, Sanchez. Again, everyone thinks he stunk. That wasn't what I saw, but I wasn't watching the game that intently. He did have success in the system last year, but he also had a hell of a lot better weapons. Matthews got a concussion, and he's been Philly's most effective back. I don't know where he's at in the protocol, so to speak. But DeMarco Murray's been nothing. Like he runs sideways. When did he do that in Dallas? It didn't work. No, 5.5 is too much for Philly. I'm with you on Tampa.
Especially with their quarterback issues, running game issues, wide receiver issues. Their defense has been pretty solid for the most part, but they blew a 16-3 lead to Miami at home. And Winston, surprisingly, has looked credible for most of this year, better than I thought he would. And he just has, I don't know how long it's going to last. But if anybody saw his locker room speech after the game,
I did not.
He's got the room. He just said the defense kept us in the game and kicked Dallas's ass, and the offense kept fighting, and we got it done in the end. And he says, we keep doing this, we win the last 7 fucking games. And they were all hooting and hollering and fucking high-fiving them and chest bumping. And there's something to be said for a guy like that on a team. He's kind of reminded me of Cam Newton. Like the Panthers aren't that great of a team for a 9-0 team. I know that sounds weird. They're not. But they believe in him. that they play hard enough because they know, okay, we got a shot with him. And I think that's what's happening with the Buccaneers now. Like, you look at the close losses they've had this year, they could very easily have the same record as the Falcons. So I'm taking Tampa Bay in the points.
Yep. And, I mean, Doug Martin's been running well. No, I like Tampa in this spot. And your Cam Newton touch there leads us to the next game. Washington +7 at Carolina. I do not want to touch this.
This would be an interesting game. No, I don't either, but going to be an interesting game to watch, I think.
Well, I'm with you, too. Carolina is a good football team, but they've got deficiencies. And as you brought up last week's, Washington's defense has been frisky. They more or less shut down New Orleans for the entire second half.
Yeah.
And I think offensively, New Orleans is a superior offense to Carolina.
Yeah, it's just Cam Newton. How the fuck do you stop him and Olsen? It's weird. They were talked about it all through the Titans game that Olsen was releasing free off the line. Wasn't in double coverage, and it's like he's the only receiver they have. Like, he threw the ball to Funchess a couple of times and to Cotchery a couple of times. But nobody had like a really huge game against Tennessee, yet they ended up with 27 points.
Yeah, even Olsen didn't have a huge game. He had 82 yards
80.
or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, so, but they ended up with 27 points. And the defense is as good as advertised, but 7's a lot here.
I think so too. Like, I just don't see Carolina going 16-0. And laying 7, I mean, Indy was in utter disarray. And they, covered and came in. I'm going to take Washington and the dog here.
I'm taking Carolina. Just for what I was saying about Winston and Newton. He doesn't look great or anything. He just puts up points.
Yeah.
And it's like Chinese water torture. It's like you don't really see how it's working until it's working. Like, the first 2 drives, they looked unstoppable. And then they just kind of fucking shut it down or got shut down. But then in the fourth quarter, when it was 20-10, they put together a drive that ended the game with a touchdown.
They are capable of eating
here's where
clock.
we end it, and they did it.
They are capable of eating clock, and if there wasn't
first downs,
if there wasn't a bogus hold on Olsen, that's what they would have done to Indy, and we would have been fine. And I would have won my football pool that week.
But Newton's not. They're not doing designed runs really much anymore. They did it a couple of times, but the runs he had were like a 6 yards for a first down, get out just past the marker, that kind of thing. He's not having to, even though we've talked about their lack of receivers and everything, he hasn't had to, at least in the games I've watched, put the game on his back with his legs.
No, it doesn't feel that same way, does it? Now his runs are, you'll see an opening up the middle for 7, and he'll just take it. But that's after he's gone through at least most of a progression.
Yeah. And
then if the middle opens up, he goes. He's not a good pocket passer, but he's an adequate pocket passer now.
Yeah. And he doesn't put up 350 a game, and he's not... But the defense gives them short fields. and they get enough out of the running game to keep you off balance. And Olsen's probably the best tight end in football this year. So they have enough weapons to beat you, and Cam Newton's the X factor. I'm taking Carolina at home.
Okay.
They're a confident team.
Yeah, I don't like the 7 here right now, so I am going to take Washington.
Ooh, you don't do well with the NFC East.
Oh, I know, but I'd already committed to it, so I figured, I knew you were trapping me on the NFC East, but I figured I've got to stand by it. All right, the next game we cannot bet, but I might recommend to our listeners that you lay the 3 with Kansas City at San Diego.
Yes. I don't think the San Diego would need about 10 bye weeks in a row to get healthy.
Yeah, we need an off season. The injuries we have are not anything like some on the offensive line, but those are injuries to the second stringers already, right? So we might get the second stringers back. But I think Watt, the center, is gone again, and he'd never played center before last year. That's how bare it is there. We've got Inman and Stevie Johnson, our top wideouts. Gates hasn't looked particularly good now that he's off the PEDs. He's dropping a fair number of balls. And with that O-line, I'm not going to blame it on Gordon yet and say he's a bust at running back, but there's no holes.
Oh, no, and Rivers doesn't get a lot of time to throw.
I like Stevie Johnson. I think he's a good slot receiver, but a slot receiver like that is only a compliment to other receivers,
Yeah, he's good when you have Keenan Allen on the outside.
Yeah, and Malcolm Floyd to stretch the field a little.
Yeah, when you have nothing to stretch the field, you run into what Green Bay's running into. And I can't believe nobody's talked about that with the Packers, but the Chiefs could run the table here for the last
I don't want to get my hopes up. Let's just say
I meant to tell you this.
What are they offering
in our
us?
Preseason bet, like $3.38 now.
It was down to 27 cents?
Or 55 cents, something like that. Yeah. Now they're offering us almost all our money back.
Yeah,
they could win the division.
I brought that up to Dave at work. I just said it's going to be interesting to see what price they give to buy that back because Denver looks vulnerable. If KC hadn't pissed away that victory over Denver that was in their grasp in week 2 or whenever that was, early in the season.
Yeah.
I'd be feeling good about the bet. Now it's a long shot, but it would be a delightful bet to cash.
Oh, yes.
So.
Yes, it would. And I was shocked when I was going through our bets this week and saw that it was up to, I'm like, what? Oh, so Vegas thinks there's a shot too.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be that high after one victory, but they're playing well too.
No, they've won 3 in a row, I think, haven't they? I think that's part of it. And we should have just bet that game on Andy Reid coming off a bye week.
Oh God,
that's our stupidity.
That is.
He's 15-2.
Again, I'm certainly not a trend better, but that's more of a coaching preparation. I don't consider that a trend like after a victory of more than 10 points. Yeah.
If he was 5-2, yeah, okay. But 15-2, that's crazy, and that's not against the spread. That's outright winning 15 out of 17 after a bye week games in two different organizations. So we have to make a mental note of that for next year.
I know we followed it last year, and I think that was one of his 2 losses. But all right, Moving on, and again, we're both on KC, and I recommend it strongly. Next up, we have Green Bay, +1 at Minnesota.
I like this game a lot.
I wouldn't say a lot. I don't hate it.
That game, I like it a lot. What has Green Bay done offensively the last 3 weeks that makes this game 1 point?
Yeah. I mean, 2 of those were against top
against
defenses, but Detroit certainly isn't.
No, Green Bay had 10 points. And they had 3 points going into the fourth quarter, didn't they? Or did they get something late in the third? They had no point. I was watching that game, or watching the ticker on the bottom, and it's like they were at 3 points forever. And Minnesota's defense is top 10. At home, it's not like Green Bay's defense has been any screaming hell. Like, who did Green Bay get beat by?
Denver, Carolina, and Detroit.
Yeah. So they put up 70 yards passing against Denver. Rodgers had 70 yards passing in the first half against Carolina. He put up most of his numbers in the third quarter and late in the fourth. In kind of garbage time. Because Carolina was up 23 points in that game in the fourth with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So I don't know how they stopped Peterson. Bridgewater I don't love at all. But
no, that's probably my biggest worry.
Yeah, but I'm betting more against Green Bay's offense than I am Minnesota's offense.
Yeah, that offensive line is not doing anything well for Green Bay.
If Minnesota wins this game, I think they've won the division. Unless they get a bunch of injuries. You don't think they'll be ready for this game? When everybody, they can actually play the us against them, us against the world. Because nobody picked them to win the fucking division. A lot of people said, they could be a sleeper to win their division. But nobody came out and said, they're going to take out Green Bay.
Yeah, I advocated it, but that was as much because it was 9-1. And I thought it was a price for a dream. But if I'd had to pick division winners, I would not have picked Minnesota. I would have picked Green Bay like everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely in the mix then.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, that front 7 of Minnesota can put really, really heavy pressure on. And Green Bay's O-line hasn't been playing well on pass or run blocking.
No. And going back to, I brought it up during the Kansas City-San Diego discussion, but Green Bay has nobody to stretch the field. And it's killing them.
Yeah, probably their top receiver recently has been Rodgers, the tight end.
Yeah. Like, you'd think Randall Cobb would be able to separate on deep balls, but he just doesn't. They haven't had any deep threat. So when you can play everything underneath, it's hard to put together drives in the NFL of 10, 12 plays every time to score.
Yeah.
That's what teams try and get you to do. They'll give you some shit here and there, but they all know it's hard to go 10, 12, 15 plays to score touchdowns consistently in the NFL. Just bad throw, drop ball, running back stumbles on his own too. Like, there's so many things can go wrong and that crowd in Minnesota is going to be going nuts.
Yeah, and Minnesota's playing outdoors again now.
Too.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's in the mix.
Here.
Yeah, that's in the mix. All right. Next up, we have the Niners plus 12.5 at Seattle. I don't want anything to do with
Seattle
it.
A 12 and a... No, but how is Seattle a 12.5 point favorite against anybody? I don't get it. I really don't. I'm taking San Francisco here. I don't care. 12.5 is too much for fucking Seattle. They have nothing offensively. They scored 2 defensive touchdowns against Arizona, or that game's a fucking blowout. The Niners' defense hasn't been horrible this year.
No. Seattle's offense has been horrible.
Yes. Like I said to you last night, we were looking up fantasy stuff after the podcast, and I said, how is fucking Jimmy Graham getting 41 yards receiving? Like, how can they not figure out how to use them? You have a good running back and a good tight end. Carolina's fucking doing it all year with basically that. And Seattle can't figure it out? Russell Wilson looks like the second coming of Colin Kaepernick now.
Yeah, our long-term ongoing argument about Wilson or Kaepernick appears to have no winner at all.
No, we were both right and both wrong.
Yep.
You said Kaepernick was no good and Wilson was good, and I said Kaepernick was good and Wilson was no good, and now they both turned out to be no good. So we're batting 500 on that one, but
yeah.
12.5 is too much. I just can't give Seattle 12.5. There's no way. That's the only reason I'm taking the Niners. I don't think the Niners have a shot in hell of winning this game, but 12.5 is too much.
Well, and let's face it, Gabbert, even though he's Gabbert, is still better than Kaepernick.
Yeah.
All right. The Sunday Nighter. Cincy is +4 at Arizona. I don't hate Zona in this.
No, me either.
But I think we have better games, to be honest.
Arizona in the desert. What Houston did to Cincinnati's offense, I think Arizona can do. Arizona's running game, they've got Ellington and Johnson both going. Fitzgerald had 120 yards receiving against Seattle. Man.
Like we can put it in the mix.
Arizona.
Yeah, we're both taking Arizona, and I don't hate it, but honestly, I don't think it's going to make our final cut. Simply because, in spite of one disastrous performance, overall, Cincy is a pretty good team. I'm not going to jump off that bandwagon yet. I mean, they weren't an undefeated team, in reality. You knew they were going to have a stinker or two along the way. But, yeah, I like Arizona in the desert.
We almost had only one undefeated team left.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
All right. And
Dalton in prime time again.
Right. Good point.
If we used to bet on Breeze and Manning and Brady at the night games on national TV because of that, Dalton's the opposite.
Though, as you brought up with the drops, I mean, everything went wrong for Cincy there. But it's not like they were ever going to cover 10.5 against a bad Houston team, even if all the balls had been caught. But, this is the difference between Cincy and some of these other teams. Even when everything's going wrong, an undefeated team like that should find a way to win, or at least get a touchdown.
Get a touchdown to give you, First team since the 34 Packers that were undefeated and failed to score a touchdown.
Yikes. Okay, and the Monday Nighter, we have Buffalo +7 at New England. I want nothing to do with it.
No, thank you. No. I watch both lay off this one and fucking New England will win by 18. But we took them to cover 7 against the Giants, who had given up their last game, I think 52 to New Orleans. And New England put up 27. So I just
they're without Edelman, they're without Dion Lewis. That O-line is not quite as decimated as the Chargers, but they're making a run at it. But I don't know that I can take Buffalo.
No. I'm taking New England, but not comfortably. But what I'll say about New England, like we were saying about Cincinnati, an undefeated team should win a game like that when they struggle against a bad Houston team. New England found a way to win that game in the end, which is what they always seem to do, unless they play the Giants in the Super Bowl. But this could be a bounce back. There's the whole Rex Ryan angle to this, too. Belichick loves fucking rubbing his nose in everything. And this could be the game you see Belichick pull out those fucking funky formations, trick plays with Amendola thrown to LaFell, or all that shit that goes on that he does when they get to this point.
I don't think they will, not at this stage, because the division is theirs, and he'll save his brainstorms for the playoffs. I don't think he would do it just to take care of another gang of scrubs. Nah,
Patriots to always say, "Oh, we don't care. It's never undefeated's never mentioned around the facility." Get real. You know you're 9-0. You had one undefeated season and lost the Super Bowl. You don't think they want that again? They'll figure out a way to score points.
Yeah. But
whether it's Gronkowski or they work another running back in as a third down back or that little swing pass running back coming out of the backfield instead of actually running the ball, they're fucking so familiar with Rex Ryan's defense.
But he plays at least one of the games every year super tight. Remember, he brought a terrible Jets squad last year and lost by a single point. I'm going to take Buffalo plus the 7.
Give me New England.
Okay. So, the only dog we've picked here is Dallas. And I don't hate it. I mean, these are small spreads for the most part this week.
Dallas or Tampa? We both like Tampa.
I'm so fucking terrible on Philly. Yeah, Philly is... I have no idea what's coming out there. And I would rather take Romo over Winston at this stage of their careers. And as we discussed, he's been practicing for weeks. We just going to take him money line?
Win outright.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's 1
point. Well, 1 point. If it is a 1 point game, it's a fucking push. So
yeah.
So we are taking Dallas on the money line to beat the Dolphins. $10 pays $19.52. Booked.
All right. The other games we have Chicago over Denver, laying 1. We have Oakland over Detroit, laying 1.5. We have Minnesota over Green Bay, laying 1. And Arizona over Cincy, laying 4.
Well, I like Oakland, but that travel and everything, Fuck. But they did lose to two pretty good teams the last couple of weeks, Pittsburgh and Minnesota. And they were in that Minnesota game for 3.5 quarters.
Yeah, and
okay, let's figure out between Minnesota and Green Bay and Arizona and Cincy, and then
we're not thinking of Chicago at all?
Well, let's just we'll break down this one first.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Chicago too. Yeah, but Denver, you fucking swayed me a little on Denver with the whole defense and not having any clue what Osweiler is.
Okay, so we'll take that one out. That leaves us Oakland, Minnesota, and Arizona.
Well, okay, the worst team playing in these 3 games is Detroit.
By far. Oakland wants to get back on the win, and the attitude of that team, I have faith that they will not curl up and die.
Yeah, they were down 14-0 to Minnesota and came back to tie it, and were hung with them. So, and Minnesota got a punt return for a touchdown and that long Peterson run at the end of the game when they had 11 guys in the box and he broke through the line and broke 1 tackle. So,
okay, let's take Oakland.
Okay, so we have Oakland -1.5. In Detroit, $10 pays $19.09 booked. So now we have between Minnesota, Green Bay, and Arizona, Cincinnati.
I'm going towards Minnesota.
Yeah, me too. What have they done to dissuade us from betting on them?
Yeah.
And Green Bay has done nothing the last 3 weeks. How do you right the ship against a defense that's this good? They can run the ball. They can throw it enough to be effective. I can't see Rodgers turning this around there.
No, I don't see
yet.
They might yet, and it's hard to count them completely out. But they've had 3 weeks now, and even more because San Diego's defense shut Green Bay down in the second half. They couldn't get separation on that sad sack of humanity. I like Minnesota here. But
yeah, okay, let's do it. No, I'm in on Minnesota. I looked at it and couldn't believe it was 1 point when I studied the odds, so why would I change my mind now?
Okay.
So we have the Vikings at home to beat the Packers -1. $10 pays $19.09 booked.
All right.
And again, there will be no parlay this week, seeing we've sucked ass the last 2.
That is true. All right. To recap, we have Dallas on the money line. $10 pays $19.52 at Miami. We have Oakland -1.5 at Detroit. $10 pays $19.09. And we have Minnesota at home laying 1 to Green Bay. $10 pays $19.09.
All right. If you want to check out the podcast, you can listen to it on iTunes or Stitcher for your Android device, on our website, offensivelines.ca. Follow us on Twitter at offensivelines for any updates to our blog post or when a new podcast is available. Facebook.com/offensivelines. And if you want to send us an email, it's offensivelines@shaw.ca. I'm Boyd.
I'm Marlon. Bet KC.
Degenerate fucking gambler.